Stop the segment. Sorry, guys. Despite it being hugely popular last time, we don't have any breaking news this time, unfortunately. And I know it was massively popular, I know. But unfortunately, and I'm sorry, unfortunately we just don't have any. So we're going to have to move on to something else. But I do have something interesting to show you. Lucky for you. Not necessarily a good thing, but it's something to show you. And it is that Jerome has had another photo shoot. Okay? Yep. I know. I'm just as worried as you. I think that the huge stress in the job, there is really massive stress in this job. I think it's getting to him. Just the enormous pressure, enormous pressure on him. And I'm just feeling for him, to be honest. But he has still managed to get us four new cards booked, 4 new cards in the UFC booked to keep us all entertained. So, despite all the stress he's going through and the clear midlife crisis that is occurring. I mean, there's even chest hair. There's new chest hair. That's how bad it's got. He's managed to continue with his job and provide us with good fights to watch. So next time I see you, we will be there at the first UFC Fight Night card we've got coming up, which is in Poland, headlined by Anthony Smith and Jan Blachowicz. Right, so as I said, I've already said what the headliner is, but the reason I booked this fight is because I wanted it as like a kind of number one contenders fight. Not officially going to be one, but for whoever wins the Reyes versus Jones rematch, which I'm hoping to do in the future after Jones has had all his legal problems dealt with. The winner of this fight will potentially fight the winner of that fight. We'll see how it goes. And then the card has a couple of other big names on it. Stefan Struve used to be a heavyweight contender, kind of dropped off a bit recently. He's fighting a younger fighter. We're just going to call him Adam. I can't pronounce his surname. A younger fighter who's another very tall fighter, 6'5". So it's going to be a battle of two giants there. And then Tybora, a couple of other recognisable names, Carolina. So let's get into it. So first fight, Vargas against Gaethje. Both of these have lost their last 2 fights, so it's basically just going to be a matter of them. If they lose, they're probably going to get cut from the UFC. See how it goes. Gaethje has won it by unanimous decision. Decent fight, that's fine. Probably going to see Vargas cut then. Next one is Liana Jojoa against Pani Kianzad. That's how you pronounce it. Don't know much about these fighters, but I know they're both kind of young in their UFC careers, so the key thing is just trying to get there, kind of push themselves up the ranking a bit. Let's see how it goes. And Kianzad has won. Another decision, also rated good. It's not too bad for prelims. Next one, not even going to pronounce. We call him ZZ, double Z, against Ryan Benoit. It's a flyweight fight. Ryan Benoit's been in the UFC for a little while. So 7 fights in the UFC. He's kind of for everyone he won. Every fight he wins, he loses. And then he's come from Fight Nights. ZZ has come from Fight Nights Global. This is his UFC debut. So it goes, and he has won. He's won by TKO in the 3rd round, and that was really a great fight. So that's a really good debut for him. Next one, we got Marcin Prachnio against Ibragonov. And these guys, we got someone he's 0-2, and then his opponent, both of them have lost their first 2 UFC fights. So again, it could be a matter of if they lose, they're going to get cut. Let's see how it goes. Ibragonov has managed to win that one. Let's get on to the next one. So we're getting on to a bit more recognisable names. Well, I recognise Tom Breeze because he's English, bit of a prospect. Coming up from English MMA against Oscar Pichota. Let's see how this one goes. And Tom Breeze has won it in the 1st round by guillotine, so that's a really good win for him, and he can push on from there. It means he's now 5-2 in UFC. So hopefully we see him start climbing up the rankings. Okay, so now we're getting into the headline of the prelims. I've got Michael against Cutelababa. I'm not sure. I'll call him, is that Ian? Ian? Is that just Ian for his first name? We'll call him Ian. So we've got Ian versus Michael. Michael, bit of a knockout artist. When he does win, tends to knock people out. He has lost his last couple of fights though. And then Ian, 4-4 in UFC. Let's see how this one goes. So hometown fighter has won. Michael is won in the first round, TKO. Really good way to finish off the prelims, and it was rated a good fight. Okay, so we've got Carolina for the next fight. She of course fought for the title a few fights ago, quite a few fights ago, against Joanna, but she lost that fight, and then since then she's kind of struggled really. She's had four losses in the last 4 fights, so really struggling. Still a reasonably big name in the strawweight division, just because of how she's done in the past. So hopefully she wins this and get back on track. She's against Courtney Casey, who has been in the UFC for a similar amount of time actually, 4-6. So it goes, and Courtney Casey has won in the first round. It's probably the end for Carolina in the UFC then. I think I'm going to have to cut her. 5 losses in a row is a bit too much. And it was rated great fight. That's a big win for Courtney though. And then next we got Marcin Tybura against Gain. Is that how you pronounce it? Gain has won his first 3 fights in the UFC. He's only had 6 total fights, but he's undefeated so far. Looks like a promising prospect against Tybura, who's been around for a long time. 5-5 in the UFC. Fought some big names actually, Verdum, and he's fought Stefan Struve as well, Arlovski, and beat 2 of them. Beat Struve and Arlovski. Let's see how this one goes. Of course, Tybura is hometown, and Tybura's won in the 3rd round. Rear naked choke. That one was rated as good. So we're starting to get into the bigger fights now, literally and in terms of the reputation of the fighters as well. We've got Adam against Stefan Struve. Stefan Struve really needs a win to get his career back on track, and then Adam kind of coming up. This will be a big win if he manages to pull it off, and he does manage to pull it off. Just about split decision win for the Polish fighter. Just a brilliant win for him to kind of kick on and start working his way up the division. Next one. So now we're on to the co-main event. We've got Zach Cummings versus Jotko, and both of these are 8-4, 8 wins, 4 losses. Both of them kind of just hanging around kind of top 20 middleweights, both of them, and just trying to work their way into top 10. I think win this fight and another one, then they will be pushing for that top 10. And so it would be a big win for either of them if they do manage to. And it was in the 3rd round. The Polish fighter Jotko has managed to win 30 seconds into round 3. Rated a great fight. It's a really good co-main event to have. Hometown fighter winning, and it's rated great. So that's brilliant. Now it is the big one. Anthony Smith versus Jan Blachowicz. And we're gonna watch this fight properly using the commentary. So let's see how it goes. It's the number 1 contender for the light heavyweight belt, sorry. And it got a big cheer for Blachowicz. I'm just going to call him Jan throughout the fight, rather than me trying to pronounce that every time. So Smith has stepped forward, trying to strike, and then Jan is hit 2 left hands on the counter. It's going to be back and forth, and then still stand up, bit back and forth. There's a bit of striking exchange. Continuing the striking exchange. Lands 2 low leg kicks. So still standing. Jan seems to be landing that leg kick quite a few times. He landed another one. And then Smith tried a header kick, but failed to land. And then they're meeting in the centre, continuing striking. And then we're seeing continuing back and forth with, seems relatively even. Jan maybe pushing forward a bit more. But they're both landing a similar amount, I think. It's continuing. Smith missed a jab, but then manages to hit a right cross. And then Jan hits a left jab and also lands a spin kick, which is interesting. Going for a bit of a more eccentric fight style than you usually see from him. And they're standing to trade. So they're continuing that stand-up fight. Seems like an exciting fight so far. And then Smith scores with a jab, but tries a roundhouse kick and doesn't manage to connect with it. Then a quick punch from Jan, and he scores a quick leg kick as well. The fighter's going toe-to-toe, so it's continuing this stand-up battle. Left cross landed from Jan, then quick left and right from Smith. A bit more back and forth. And then Smith hits a left jab, and it also hits a wicked right uppercut. And that has knocked down Jan in the first round. Got 1 minute remaining. Smith has noticed his golden opportunity, trying to do a bit of ground and pound. and there's big strikes going on, repeated heavy blows, and the ref has jumped in, so that's a massive win for Anthony Smith. He's coming off beating Alexander Gustafsson, and then he's beaten Jan as well now, so he's probably due getting another title shot. Maybe we'll see who wins the next fight, and I'll think about it. Potentially if Reyes wins, maybe we do the rubber match with John Jones, or maybe we do the Anthony Smith fight. But that's two really impressive victories, especially winning the first round. We're going to move right on to the next event, which is headlined by Shevchenko and Calderwood fighting for the women's flyweight title. We are in Scotland for what is probably the biggest UFC card Scotland's ever seen. Titles on the line. We've got Gamrot versus Reyes, the co-main event. Ray, of course, from Scotland, and Gamrot signing over from KSW, undefeated so far in his career, held their lightweight title. We've got Nico Price versus Gunnar Nelson. We've got Clay Guida versus Mark Dikiasi. Quite a few big names in there, and in the prelims, quite a few kind of prospects coming through, particularly European prospects. So it's a really exciting card. Let's get started. So, first fight, Tanner Boser versus Tom Aspinall. And Tom Aspinall, kind of big knockout artist, has a lot of power. He's on his UFC debut, so it'll be interesting to see how he gets on. Tanner Boser's had a couple of fights in the UFC, 1 win, 1 loss so far. See how it goes. And Tom Aspinall, living by his kind of knockout roots, where he's knocked out a lot of his fighters in the past, and he's knocked out another fighter in his UFC debut. Tanner Boser knocked out by punch, not even a technical knockout, proper knockout in round 3. Brilliant for his career. Next fight, Yusuf Zalal versus Lerone Murphy. Both of these kind of younger prospects coming through in UFC, particularly Zalal, who's only 23 years old. I think they both have one fight in the UFC so far. Interesting to see how they get on. And Zalal has won, which is a brilliant result for him. Unanimous decision. Fight was rated good. Excellent. Next fight we have is Janelle, I'm not sure who that is, it's cut off for some reason, against David Duvrak. It's Janelle Lusa, I call him Janelle. And I don't know too much about both these guys. I think Duvrak's, he's just won one fight so far, a bit of a prospect coming from Czech Republic. And Janelle, who should be Janelle Lusa, not sure why that's cut off there, from the Philippines. He's won 1 win, 2 losses so far in the UFC. Let's see how it goes. And he has won. Janelle has won by submission in the first round. The fight was rated great. Next, we got Andrade versus Merab. Merab from Georgia. 3 wins, 2 losses so far. And then we've got an experienced fighter in Andrade. A lot of total fights and 4 wins, 3 losses so far in the UFC. And Andrade has won it. Unanimous decision. Sorry, didn't say that for a second. And the fight was rated as great. So that's another good, exciting fight to in the prelims, which is what you want to see. Now this is a really interesting one. We've got David Tamer versus Tamer against Mark Madsen. Mark Madsen, Olympic wrestler, really kind of highly acclaimed in Denmark. Won his first 2 fights in the UFC so far. This one was in Denmark, I believe. So it'd be interesting to see how he gets on against a real up-and-coming person that's working his way up the lightweight division. He's top 21 in UFC at the moment. He's won 5 fights, lost 1. He just lost his last one against Charles de Oliveira. He's a very good fighter, so that's nothing to be ashamed of, really. So we'll see how that one goes. And Tamer has won, Tamer, I keep saying his name wrong, in the first round by strikes, perhaps. Mark Madsen's striking not quite good enough, comes from the wrestling background, and he's been exploited here with a first round KO. Last one, Paul Craig versus Sam Alvey. Sam Alvey, very experienced fighter, been around for a long time in the UFC. 10 wins, 8 losses. Paul Craig, last fight, drew to Shogun, and pretty experienced himself as well. Quite a few fights in the UFC. See how this goes. Sam Alvey has won, knockout in the first round. The fight was rated as good, not what the home crowd would have wanted to see, that's a big win for Sam Alvey. So we're into the main card now. We've got Rani Yahya against Brett Johns. Brett Johns, kind of a prospect coming through Wales. Interesting to see how these both get on. Both exciting fighters. And we've ended up Brett Johns with a unanimous decision win. That's a big win for him. And it was rated as great. Brilliant. Okay, so it's a fight I'm really interested in actually. Clay Guida against Mark Diakiese, and both of these are really exciting fights to watch. Kind of all action fights in general, going forward a lot. Clay Guida, of course, been around for a long time. Lots and lots of fights back in the OG UFC days, and he's just just staying around and winning some, losing some, but most fights really exciting. And Mark Diakiese's kind of working his way back up after 3 losses in a row. He's won his last 2. Let's see how he goes. And he has won. Mark Diakiese, big win with a knockout in the first round. He definitely needed that to kind of reignite his career. That's a brilliant result for him. And next we've got Nico Price versus Gunnar Nelson. Gunnar Nelson has kind of fallen off a little bit after coming through as a really exciting jiu-jitsu grappler. He's lost his last couple of fights. Still a big name. And Nico Price equally, also a big name. Kind of winning some, losing some, coming off a big knockout win with a big kick against James Vick. And Nico Price has won. That is 3 losses on the bounce for Nelson. Still have another chance, UFC, to try and get that. He might need to, he'll be fighting someone a bit lower ranked next time. That's a big win for Price. We're on to the co-main event now. It'll be really interesting to see how Gamrot gets on. Of course, like I said, UFC debut against Stephen Ray, he's a difficult test. So see how it goes on. And Gamrot has won second round TKO. Brilliant result for him. Not sending the home crowd happy again though. Home happy. So hopefully, well, for their sake, this last fight, although I would be surprised, Calderwood definitely quite a big underdog against Shevchenko, who of course is one of the women, well, not just women, one of the best fighters in the world, and one of the greatest of all time, definitely one of the greatest women of all time. So it'll be interesting to see how this goes on. We'll go through the commentary for this one. So, as it says, big cheer for Calderwood. We should expect on a fighting in Scotland. Touch of gloves to start off with, and start striking. Calderwood managed to land a right jab, I think that said, and then Shevchenko's hits a right jab, and then left hand is blocked. They come together, but not really much damage being done. Meeting in the centre. A feint is brought entirely by Calderwood, so she's now wide open for Shevchenko. Calderwood misses a right and then leaves her open to a counter. Shevchenko attacks with a thumping kick to the thigh, using that Muay Thai background, and then Calderwood misses a right hook and leaves herself open to be countered with a right jab and a left hand. So we're seeing Shevchenko winning the standing exchanges so far, which is not really surprising. She's an elite stand-up fighter. Shevchenko opens Calderwood up with a feint. Shevchenko dodges a right hand and counter-attacks with quick jabs that are followed by a left cross. The 2 fighters are meeting in the centre again, starting to strike. Calderwood misses with a big right hand, so Shevchenko manages to counter, but misses the big left hand. They continue to step forward. Calderwood misses a right hook and gets countered with a jab, and a hook attempt to the body that doesn't land. Calderwood acknowledges some instructions from a corner with a curt nod of the head and returns her full attention to the fight. Maybe something to do with trying to change the way it's going in terms of pushing forward as much, because she seems to be getting exploited in the stand-up fights. But let's see. Calderwood misses a high kick that leaves her open. Shevchenko comes in quickly with a jab and right kick to the ribs. Both fighters step in again, and Calderwood falls for a clever feint. Shevchenko slips past a right hook attempt and attacks with a good kick to the leg. Calderwood has an obvious limp as she circles, so we're seeing Shevchenko really targeting those legs successfully. And there's more strikes going on, but not much is landing. Calderwood uses a left jab, but a right cross is blocked. Shevchenko lands a right jab and also hits a right hook to the body. And Calderwood's still limping. The striking's continuing. Calderwood's still buying those feints. Calderwood misses right hook that leaves her open. And then Shevchenko comes in with a quick jab and a left cross. 50 seconds till the end of the round. They stand and trade, but nothing major is landing, and it's continuing this to go forward, both of them. Shevchenko lands a hook to the body, and the time runs out in the round. So that's Shevchenko's round. Calderwood not disgracing herself, but it does look like Shevchenko's in control. A lot of those feints being really effective. Shevchenko dodges a right hand and counterattacks with a nice left hook. Was that a left hook? Yep, left hook. Calderwood is not able to compete with Shevchenko in the striking battle, and she's getting badly outstruck. That's what I said. It looks like it is happening. Neither fighter's landing anything significant. Shevchenko misses a jab, and now Calderwood doesn't find the mark, and their limps continuing. Calderwood misses a big right hand. She's off balance now. Shevchenko manages to land something, and then a nice feint for Shevchenko causes Calderwood to become open. Shevchenko slips a right hook and counters with a right kick to the ribs. And there's continued limping from Calderwood. Shevchenko slips past a right hook attempt and attacks with a sequence of quick jabs that are followed by a left hand that just misses. Calderwood doesn't connect with a left jab, but connects with a right hand. Shevchenko hits a right jab and also lands with a right hand to the body. And now into the second half of the round. They come together, continuing to trade. More of the same, really. Shevchenko getting the best with the stand-up. And now Calderwood starting to tire out. And then more. It looks like Shevchenko landing a bit more. Continuing, Shevchenko still just landing in the stand-up. And we're going to get to the end of the round now. And the kick's really effective for Shevchenko, particularly at the legs. Also a couple of kicks to the ribs, and she's winning this fight quite easily at the moment. Calderwood's still limping, so saying it again. Shevchenko lights her up with the opponent with 3 jabs, and then a right cross, I think it said. And then Shevchenko misses a jab, but hits a right roundhouse kick to the body. Calderwood is off target with a jab, but scores a right hook. And now Shevchenko looks like she's starting to get a little bit tired. It's interesting. Oh, what happened here? Calderwood misses a right hook and leaves herself open to be countered with a right jab and a good left hand. And Calderwood staggers backwards. She may have been stunned by that last blow. A sharp spinning back fist, wow, to the side of the jaw, and Calderwood gets dropped. Shevchenko moves in quickly, kneeling beside Calderwood and starting to hammer down with punches. Shevchenko pounds away, landing several great shocks that rock Calderwood. Shevchenko lands a powerful elbow strike that caught Calderwood on the side of the head. She keeps pounding away, but Calderwood's managed to survive. And that's incredible, really. Shevchenko blocks Calderwood as she tries to transition to guard. And they're still pounding away with elbow strikes. And Calderwood's still trying to transition, but failing. Continuing to pound away, but nothing's landing. Attempt to transition again. Keep trying to pound away, but it's not working. No transition. Shevchenko tries to hit a knee strike, but Calderwood swarms out of the way, and the blow's only glancing. And now they're standing him up. That's quite quick. And Calderwood limps pretty heavily as she circles around. Unsurprising. Another round for Shevchenko. Calderwood sounded like she did very well to survive there. Spinning back fist. Sounded like quite a spectacular knockdown. Okay, so they're still going for the stand-up. Shevchenko misses the right jab and also misses a low kick. And doesn't find the mark again. Calderwood lands a left jab, but the right hand is absorbed by gloves. Shevchenko scores with a one punch out of a sudden fly, but gets the left hand blocked. They're meeting in the centre again. Calderwood misses a right hook that gets countered with a jab, and a big left hand that just misses. Calderwood limps pretty heavily as she circles around. They stand and trade blows, but neither can land anything damaging. And there's continued engagement. It sounds like an exciting fight. They're going for it. Shevchenko slips past the right hook and counters with a pair of jabs that are followed by a left hand that lands cleanly. Now they're continuing to push forward, meeting in the centre. Shevchenko misses with a big right hand, allowing Calderwood to counter with a jab and a right cross that just misses. Calderwood lands a left hook. Shevchenko lands a quick punch and then hits a good left hand. Calderwood's continuing to limp. And then Calderwood lands a nice 1-2. Shevchenko lands a quick punch and then a left head kick. Covering up, Calderwood backs off until trapped against the cage. And that big head kick looks like it's rocked Shevchenko. Oh my god, Shevchenko is aiming to get Calderwood into a Muay Thai clinch. She gets it and now has a dazed Calderwood in even more serious trouble. Using the clinch, Shevchenko hits a vicious knee to the ribs of Calderwood. Shevchenko misses a knee strike but maintains the control of her clinch. From the clinch, Calderwood gets caught with a massive knee to the chest. Calderwood partially blocks the knee strike and enough to allow her to wrestle free of the clinch. It sounds like Calderwood's getting a bit of a beating. Both fighters move in. She's still going though, to be fair to her. They're still engaging and Calderwood is not backing down. Shevchenko misses a left hook and leaves herself open to be countered with a left jab and a right hook that is ducked. Calderwood has an obvious limp, and that is the end of the fourth round. A lot of respect for Calderwood to be staying in this fight and not been finished yet. It's quite clear that Shevchenko's massively ahead on the scorecards. Calderwood misses a right hook and leaves herself open to be countered with a right jab and a powerful straight left. And she's down. Calderwood falls to the floor. Another knockdown. And we're going to see some ground and pound. Calderwood is eating a lot of shots and the referee has stepped in. That is a TKO victory, a very comfortable sounding victory for Shevchenko. A lot of heart shown from Calderwood, which is brilliant. Really good to see. It is really hard to see who is going to take that flyweight belt off Shevchenko. But we're going to move right on to this next event, which is in California. This event is headlined by Asin Chow versus Dominick Cruz. Dominick Cruz, of course, hasn't fought in about 4 years. Last fight was against Cody Garbrandt, where he lost by unanimous decision, lost his title. Obviously was a very dominant champion. So he'll be looking to win this fight and then get a title shot after this fight, assuming he wins it, and push on from there and hopefully in his case win the title. Co-main event's a really interesting one as well. Should be an exciting fight. We've got Gregor Gillespie. He's coming off a knockout loss to Kevin Lee, but before that he was finishing opponents regularly. And Dariush also finished quite a few of his opponents. One fine knockout in his last fight against Closer, who's also on the card tonight against Evan Dunham. A few other good-looking fights here. It's full of kind of what should be exciting fights, which is good. Joe Soto also on the card. So let's get started. First fight on the card, we got Carlisle versus Garcia. Not much to say about these two guys. Carlisle, I think, might be making his UFC debut. Nope. He's had one fight. He's won his first fight in the first round. It's a really good start to his UFC career, and he'll just be looking to push on. And Garcia has lost his first fight. So let's see how this one goes. And Garcia has managed to win his first fight in the UFC, which is brilliant for him. Look to push on after that. We've got Evan Smith versus Lipsky. Evans, both of these two are kind of top 25, looking to push on a bit more in their weight division. Let's see how it goes. It's an average fight, but a TKO win for Lipsky, which is brilliant. Going to move on. Next fight, Hernandez versus Spicely. Not much to say about these two either, really. Hernandez, a couple of fights in the UFC, 1-1, and Spicely 2 wins, 4 losses. I believe these 4 losses in a row actually. So Spicely lucky maybe to be staying in the UFC already. This is going to be his last chance, and he has lost. So Spicely's going to be cut then, 5 losses in a row. But it's a good win for Hernandez. Actually a big underdog as well, so he's done well to win that. Yoda against Hannah Cyphers. And we're going to see how this one goes. We've got Yoda, who's 2 wins, 4 losses in the UFC so far, coming off a loss, and Hannah Cyphers also coming off a loss. And this fight has been rated great, which is brilliant. Hannah Cyphers managed to win by TKO against Yoda. Not Yofa, Yoda. Made up her name. Next fight, we got Pitchell versus Morales. Morales undefeated so far, coming from Venezuela. Pitchell coming to MMA a bit late, but he has got 5 wins, 2 losses. So both of these kind of looking to push on further. Morales, I think, he has had 1 fight in the UFC, unanimous decision. And Pitchell, I think, has got a good streak going. Oh no, he's not got a good streak going. That is incorrect. But he won 4 fights and then he's lost against Gregor Gillespie. He's later on in the card. but he's got a decent record so far. It's a better way of saying it. There we go. And then Morales has won via TKO. Big win for him, continuing his unbeaten streak. He's now going to be able to really push on from there. He won unanimous decision in his first fight, so it's looking very good for him to kind of push up that division. Next fight, Joe Soto versus Brian Kelleher. Joe Soto, of course, fought for the title in the past when he first came into the UFC. His career in the UFC hasn't quite gone maybe how he'd hoped. He's been a bit on and off. Let's see if he can push on from here against a very difficult challenge in Kelleher. And he has managed a unanimous decision win. It's a very big win for him, actually, because he's coming off 2 losses. So he needed that win. And he was a pretty big underdog coming into it. Next fight, Bobby Green against Yasi Medeiros. Both of these guys really exciting fighters, so we should see, hopefully, a good rating on the fight rating. And yeah, they said good, it's not that good, but Bobby King's won by a split decision. So good for him. Next fight, Strickland versus Barberana. Strickland's been around for a long time, 7 wins, 3 losses. Very good. Beaten some kind of, he's never managed to kind of break into beating the kind of contenders. He's always just been nearly there, not quite got to there, and almost a relatively similar story for Barberana in some cases. He's had some big wins like against Ellenberger, but he's never managed to quite kind of push into getting even close to challenging the title. And Strickland's won that one. It's a big win for him to extend his record to 21-3. Next, we've got Evan Dunham against Closer. Evan Dunham, of course, big name in MMA. Never won the title, but been there or thereabouts for a long time. Is on a bit of a downward spiral at the moment. Lost his last 2 fights and also drew one previously. Whereas Closer's up and coming. Had a big knockout loss to Dariush, which was a fight that Closer was winning for a lot of the fight, and then got knocked out. It was a big knockout. See how this one goes. Evan Dunham wins in the first round. That's a massive win. 1 minute into the round via submission, guillotine. Excellent. Well, next fight, co-main event, is Gillespie versus Dariush. Both of these guys have really been looking to push on to the top 10 and start and hopefully have a top 10 fight. I know Gillespie's just had Kevin Lee, but I still think he has the potential to push on and get into being a top 10 fighter despite that loss. So let's see how this one goes. And he has won this one. Only rated as a decent fight. The unanimous decision win for Gregor Gillespie. We're now in to the main event. Dominick Cruz making his return. That's the big story. That's why this is the main event. I think Dominick Cruz will be hoping to make a statement. Although Asinchao is no easy task. Very experienced. Is coming off 2 losses against two very good fighters, but they are 2 losses nonetheless. And he's always managed to beat everyone but the very, very best. And Dominick Cruz is the very, very best, so I would expect to see Dominick Cruz win this. But let's see how it goes. And Cruz is, of course, in California, in his hometown. So Cruz is pressuring Asinchao, and then we're seeing Asinchao counter with a left hand. Cruz lands a jab, and then he hits Asinchao with a beauty of a straight right. Cruz is still coming forward, walking down Asinchao. Asinchao fires a jab. Cruz hits a left hand, but cannot connect with a spinning back kick. Cruz forces an exchange of strikes. Asinchao hits a jab in the exchange. A jab is wide from Cruz, but then he hits a nice straight right that lands hard. Moving forwards constantly, Cruz is pressuring Asinchao. Asinchao hits a counter left hand. Cruz fails to find home for his jab, but then he hits a nice straight right. Cruz steps forward and a striking exchange begins. Asinchao tries to hit a jab but misses. Cruz fails to find a home for his jab, but then he hits a nice straight right that lands hard. So we're seeing Cruz taking control so far, pushing forward, and it looks like he's landing much more than Asinchao has Cruz continues to come forward, and the two fighters start trading blows. Ashenchel manages to hit a jab in the exchange, but Cruz throws a 1-2, but Ashenchel was equal to it. An exchange of strikes doesn't go anywhere, and then a quick exchange of strikes also doesn't lead to anything. Cruz has switched stances. Ashenchel may have been setting up to shoot, but Cruz aggressively takes the initiative. A flurry of 3 punches from Cruz see one of them land, but sees the following low kick get caught. Cruz hops on one foot trying to balance. Ashenchel tries to take down Cruz, and Ashenchel uses position to drive Cruz up against the cage. Cruz now up against the cage. Ashenchel looking for the trip. A great inside trip sees Cruz get thrown to the mat, and Ashenchel's dangerous on the mat, of course, with jiu-jitsu background. Ashenchel trying to pass the guard. He's managed to do it. Ashenchel's passed his guard, but Cruz was ready, and a scramble for position ensues. The scramble sees Cruz up first, and he is quick to wrestle Ashenchel up against the cage. That's very good from Cruz to get out of that situation. Into the final minute of the round. Ashenchel is controlled up against the cage and takes an elbow to the face from the clinch. Ashenchel gets caught with a knee to the side of the stomach. Cruz pins Ashenchel up against the cage. Then they dirty box each other at range until the round ends. Yeah, looked like Cruz won that round. Fairly comfortable, although Ashenchel showing that he can take Cruz down, which could be interesting later on. And he's gone for the takedown straight away. But Cruz remains standing, hopping on a foot. And then Ashenchel uses position to drive up the cage, very similar to last time, but this time Ashenchel doesn't get the trip. Cruz is now aiming to get Ashenchel into a Muay Thai clinch. Ashenchel can't fight it off, so they're in a Muay Thai clinch now, and Ashenchel partially blocks a knee strike, enough to allow him to wrestle free of the clinch. Cruz is looking confident, and he connects a nice jab and then lands a right hand. Then he lands another jab and scores a right cross that landed hard. Exchange of blows comes, and without either fighter really landing anything significant, Cruz steps forward and the striking begins. Ashenchel's landed a counter jab. Ashenchel falls for a feint and is left vulnerable to attack. Cruz lands a jab and then he scores with a right cross past the halfway mark. And we're seeing some more shots engaging in the centre. Cruz keep pushing forward, and we got 2 counter left hands from Ashenchel. Cruz throws a 1-2, but Ashenchel is equal to it. A quick exchange of strikes doesn't lead to anything. Cruz steps forward and a striking exchange begins. Ashenchel with a left hand in the exchange, and Cruz opens Ashenchel up with a feint. Cruz can't connect with a jab, but then he catches Ashenchel with a right hook. Cruz takes a moment to switch to southpaw, so he's switching stance again, interestingly. They come together, trade lever, there's more stand-up fighting, and Cruz comes forward, continuing to pressure Ashenchel. And he connects with a jab, but misses with a follow-up right hand. Ashenchel chooses to shoot in on Cruz, and he gets the takedown again. And Cruz pulls guard. That takedown could be significant. They still reckon that Cruz has won their round, so it's 20-18 to Cruz. And the two fighters engage. Cruz is off target with a jab, but lands a left kick to the ribs. Ashenchel finds a good angle and lands a nice 1-2. Two fighters come forward, and Cruz counters a right hand with a powerful straight right. Ashenchel is knocked down. Cruz starts pounding away on Ashenchel, looking to finish him off, and Cruz continues pounding down on him, and Ashenchel's having trouble doing anything with it. And now the referee has stepped in, and a massive comeback victory for Cruz, TKO in the 3rd round against a very experienced opponent. And the fight was rated great, which is brilliant. And I definitely think Dominick Cruz is going to be getting that title shot next against Henry Cejudo. So it'll be really interesting to see how that fight goes. So we're going to get on to the last event in this episode, and it is Conor McGregor fighting against Justin Gaethje. Welcome to UFC 250, headlined by UFC's biggest star, and also got a stacked undercard of lots of interesting fights. Robert Whittaker, coming off that loss against Adesanya for his middleweight belt, fighting Cannonier, who's knocked out three of his last opponents. You got Frankie Edgar on the undercard, fighting Ricky Simon, who came in as a late replacement for Pedro Munoz. Frankie Edgar's making his debut at bantamweight. Jeff Neal, Al Hussein fighting each other, 2 fighters that have knocked out about 4 or 5 of their last opponents, and both very interesting prospects. Sean O'Malley, who is widely kind of touted to be similar to Conor McGregor in terms of his personality and also his fighting style. Against Marlon Vera getting the main cards started, and then some Makhachev, another prospect, fighting against Ferreira. Both of these guys been undefeated for 6 fights, fighting each other, and then a number of other interesting fights later on. So let's get started. So first fight, Berish against Lewis. Both of these guys kind of relatively new fighters to UFC and to fighting in general. Both got, one of them's got 9 fights, the other one's got 7. So we'll see how this one goes. Just a quick one to get started. And rated as good. It's not a bad start. Unanimous decision win for Lewis. Okay, moving on. Devin Wynn versus Marcus Perez. Devin Wynn came in with a lot of hype into the UFC. He was a very good wrestler. He's only 5'7", but he fights at the light heavyweight class, which is obviously not a typical height to be fighting at that weight, which has led to kind of comparisons to Daniel Cormier. Daniel Cormier is not quite that short, but he's kind of shorter for his weight class as well. But he has lost his last 2 fights against Perez, who's had a few fights in the UFC, kind of won one, lose one. So this is kind of Devin Wynn's chance to show that he can make it, and he's lost again. So Perez wins split decision, and the fight was rated decent. Next fight, Brown versus Morano. Both of these guys like to stand and bang and have very exciting fights. So let's see how this one goes. It's only rated average, but another split decision, and Morano won that one. Bit of an underdog coming into it, so it's a big win for him. Next, we've got Aldrich versus Mackenzie Dern. Mackenzie Dern, kind of widely thought as one of the best female jiu-jitsu grapplers of all time. It'll be interesting to see how it goes. She did lose her last fight, and she has won this one via submission in 37 seconds. That jiu-jitsu coming in handy there, and should be hoping to push on for the next couple of fights and start trying to get into that top 10 in contention for the title. Shane Burgos against Philly. Both of these guys in around the top 10. Yeah, so they're just trying to break into the top 10. Whoever wins this possibly will be. So we'll see how it goes. Oh, it's rated fantastic, which is brilliant. And Philly has defeated Shane Burgos by a unanimous decision. He's a slight underdog. Big win for him and getting a fantastic fight as well. Probably end up with fight of the night, unless anyone else outdoes them later. Makhachev versus Ferreira. Both of these guys, as I said earlier, they're on 6-fight win streaks. Both really big prospects. Ferreira's coming off a win against Anthony Pettis, and Makhachev's just been kind of going through the division, kind of almost quietly, getting things done and starting to make a name for himself now. Definitely if he wins against Ferreira, he will make a big name for himself. So let's see how it goes. Rated as decent. Ferreira, another decision. Ferreira wins, which is a slight upset. So that's interesting. Ferreira's won that one, and he'll be starting to get a top 10 guy definitely in his next fight, and we'll see how he gets on with that. Sean O'Malley versus Marlon Vera. As I said, Sean O'Malley, big prospect in the UFC, hyped up to be similar to Conor McGregor. Let's see how it goes. And he has won, and he's won by TKO in the second round, so that's a really good win for him, and fight was rated great, which will really help his marketability. Next one, Jeff Neal against Al Hussein. As I said earlier, both of these big knockout artists. Al Hussein, I think, has knocked out his last 3 opponents, and then I think we still have Jeff Neal knocked out his last 2. Let's see how this one goes. And there was another knockout. This time Jeff Neal knocks out Al Hussein in the second round. Fight rated great. So 2 really good starts to the main card. Next one, Ricky Simon versus Frankie Edgar. Frankie Edgar making his bantamweight debut. Originally was facing Pedro Munoz. Ricky Simon's been given a big opportunity. Definitely a big underdog coming into this. He's lost his last 2 fights. But we'll see how it goes. And he has managed to win in a huge upset. Ricky Simon's beat Frankie Edgar, and that might be Frankie Edgar starting to think about retiring at this point. Because that's a big loss really. Against a guy he was only 20th in the bantamweight division, lost his last 2 fights. Fight was rated great. It was a unanimous decision. Next fight, Cannonier versus Whittaker. Cannonier coming off 3 knockouts. Jack Manson was quite a big upset when he beat Jack Manson. Also beaten Anderson Silva in his previous fight, so he's really made a name for himself recently. And then Robert Whittaker, very underrated fighter really. Held the middleweight belt for beating Joe Romero twice, and then lost it to Adesanya. So we'll see how this one goes. I'm not going to use the commentary on this one. I thought about it, but to keep the video a little bit shorter, we're going to go straight to the end of this one. And it was Robert Whittaker winning in the first round via TKO. So that's a really good, confident win after losing to Adesanya. And he'll be starting to push for a title shot, maybe if he wins one more. But that's very good for him. Now, as the main event, Justin Gaethje versus Conor McGregor. This one kind of speaks for itself. Justin Gaethje's knocked out his last 3 opponents in the first round. And Conor McGregor just coming off that win against Donald Cerrone, where he knocked him out in 40 seconds. It's a massive fight. Winner is going to fight Khabib for the lightweight belt. Lightweight belt. So let's see how it goes. So we're underway. 2 combatants meet in the centre. Gaethje hits a jab but doesn't make contact on the low kick. Showing his boxing, McGregor lands 3 quick jabs, follows it with a nice left hook. McGregor slips past a right hook and counters with a jab and a head kick attempt that doesn't connect. And they're continuing to come and strike. That's what you kind of expect from this kind of fight. Both of these guys, very confident strikers. Gaethje, although he has his wrestling background, still loves to strike. McGregor hits a right jab but misses with a spinning back kick. Gaethje throws 4 punches and lands one of them, and then hits a crunching kick to the thigh. An exchange of blows comes and goes without either fighter really landing anything significant. Both fighters meet in the centre. McGregor slips past a right hook and counters with a jab and a wicked left uppercut, and Gaethje has been knocked down. This is only 2 minutes into the first round. McGregor quickly pounces, looking to rain down some punches on Justin Gaethje, and he's continued to pound away, and Gaethje's struggling to deal with him. He's still throwing more strikes, but he's starting to gas himself out. And McGregor fires a few punches as he catches his breath, begins trying to find himself he's trying to get into mount. Gaethje allows the mount attempt, but it's just a ploy to allow him to try and scramble. McGregor ends up in half guard. McGregor punches down at Gaethje, and they are easily taken on the gloves. Looking to catch his breath, McGregor is content just to throw a couple of punches to the body. So McGregor already gassing out in the first round. Doesn't normally see it this early, but we often see a problem with his gas dump later in later rounds. McGregor punches down at Gaethje, but they are easily taken to the gloves. McGregor keeps Gaethje guessing with a few quick strikes. McGregor fires off some lefts, but Gaethje isn't troubled by them. The time's up in the first round. That's surely going to go to McGregor, and it does. So we got 10-9 in the first one, or according to the commentator, reckons it goes to McGregor. Got the knockdown and then gassed himself out trying to finish it. He's got to be careful. Moving forward constantly, McGregor is pressuring Gaethje. Gaethje throws a counter jab but misses. I'm sure Gaethje's not used to someone else pressuring him, because he's kind of infamous for just continuously, relentlessly pressuring other opponents. A flurry of 4 punches from McGregor see them all connect, and then he scores with a lovely head kick. McGregor attacks with strikes. Gaethje fires a jab. McGregor connects with a jab, but Gaethje steps back to avoid the kick to the body. Moving forward constantly, McGregor is pressuring Gaethje. Gaethje misses with a left hand in the exchange. McGregor lands a right jab, but a big left high kick is wide of the mark. So he's trying that high kick quite a bit, interestingly. Then McGregor doesn't connect with a right jab, but hits a kick to the leg. Gaethje throws 5 quick punches and lands one of them, then hits a kick to the leg. McGregor comes forward, looking to force a strike and exchange. McGregor's now in the pocket. A jab lands from McGregor, but can't connect with a spinning back kick. McGregor comes forward, looking to force a strike and exchange. Gaethje fires off a counter jab. A jab is wide, but but then he catches Gaethje with a left kick to the head. Trying that left kick again, it's worked this time. McGregor comes forward on the attack. Gaethje jabs, and then a flurry of 3 punches from McGregor. I see them all connect, and then he lands a low kick to the legs. McGregor's limps slightly as he circles. Both fighters step in to strike. Gaethje manages to connect with only 1 punch of a fly, but is well off target with a head kick. McGregor hits a left head kick. again, and he's rocked Gaethje for a second time in the fight. He backs away, covering up. He looks very unsteady. McGregor is looking to get Gaethje into a Muay Thai clinch for some reason. Probably he gets it, and now has a dazed Gaethje in even more serious trouble. Tries a knee strike but doesn't connect. But Gaethje isn't able to get free from the clinch either. And the end of the round is coming quick. There's under a minute left. Gaethje blocks a knee strike but cannot get free of the Muay Thai clinch. From the clinch, Gaethje gets caught with a massive knee to the chest, and McGregor finds an attempted knee strike caught, and the leverage allows Gaethje to wrestle free, and that's the end of the round. Interesting to see McGregor decided to go for the clinch. I think it's probably the best to keep his distance and to try and pick his shots even when he's close to finishing Gaethje, because Gaethje's got that wrestling background, and yeah, McGregor doesn't want to get in those situations, really, trying to keep the distance when he can. But he's still 20-18 up. He's had 2 knockdowns so far, and he is dominating the fight. They meet in the centre again. McGregor fails on a leg kick attempt. Gaethje goes for a roundhouse kick to the body, but finds McGregor is far too quick on his feet to get caught out. For the first time, McGregor's starting to breathe a little heavier. That wasn't the first time, we saw that early in the round, first round, but anyway. They exchange a few strikes, but nothing that looks significant lands. Limping slightly, McGregor is definitely starting to feel the damage to his legs, so his leg kicks from Gaethje are working. Gaethje scores with a single punch out of a flurry, and then scores with a quick leg kick, and then McGregor uses a right jab and also scores with a great left hook. Both fighters come together and strike. McGregor scores with a jab and also lands with a right hand to the body. Gaethje is off target with a pair of jabs but hits a good leg kick. Both fighters come together. And then a flurry of punches from Gaethje doesn't really land, but he scores with a good right hook. And then McGregor uses his right jab and also a good left hand. The two fighters still engaging, going forward. Gaethje misses, but then hits with a good leg kick. McGregor scores with a jab and then connects cleanly with a left hand. Gaethje is slowing now, so they're both starting to struggle a little bit with their gas tank. And this is something that Gaethje struggles with as well in past fights. And Gaethje acknowledges some instructions in the corner. Gaethje misses a right hook and then gets countered with a jab and a left hook to the ribs that doesn't land. McGregor is barely able to walk thanks to the damage to his legs, so he's in a bit of trouble there. And an exchange of strikes happens right in the centre of the cage, but nothing comes of it. We're in the final minute of the round. Gaethje misses with a pair of jabs but lands a low kick. McGregor hits a jab and also lands a nice left hook. And continuing to push forward, both of them. Gaethje finds a good angle and lands a nice 1-2. McGregor scores with a jab and also scores with a great left hook. McGregor steps in and looks to unleash. Gaethje may have been aiming to get getting close, but McGregor aggressively took the initiative. A jab lands from McGregor, but finds nothing but air with a big left. McGregor throws a punch, but Gaethje avoids it. And it was a very exciting round. And it's another round to McGregor, according to the commentator. Gaethje was a little bit more in that round, I think, than he was in the previous rounds, but still not great. McGregor's still limping. Quick fly of punches from McGregor, sees 4 hit home, and then catches Gaethje with a stunning left hook. And again, Gaethje's been knocked down, and it's a complete knockout, in fact, not just knocked down. And it is all over. McGregor has won the fight in the 4th round via knockout. He's going to be getting the rematch against Khabib, which should be a really interesting fight. And hopefully I'll be able to get that done in kind of early January. We'll see how it goes. Depends how long McGregor needs off from Khabib in terms of the how long they need off from this fight. Obviously, it was a 4-round fight. He did get a lot of damage to a leg, so he might have a bit of a long layoff. But that's a good result from a promoter's point of view, because Conor McGregor is the biggest star in UFC, and him fighting against Khabib should be even bigger than before, potentially, than the first fight, considering he's coming off 2 knockout wins now. And that's the end for this episode. Remember to comment and subscribe and all that good stuff, and I'll see you next time.